Coming up, an Atlas V launch.
Antares gets an April launch date, and Soyuz takes the fast track to the International Space Station.
Available via Amazon Prime, a Saturn V F-1 engine, slightly used. And we'll be joined by Andrew Nelson of XCOR to describe what the heck a piston rocket engine is. All that coming up on our Season 6, Episode 9 of Spacevidcast. Make it so. And welcome to the live show for Saturday, March 30th, 2013. My name is Benjamin Higginbotham. With me, as always, the beautiful, lovely, wonderful, and talented Carrie Ann Higginbotham will be your hosts for this live episode. Let's go ahead and get straight started with some space news. First up, we've got an Atlas V in a 401 launch configuration, bringing up a space-based infrared system, Cebris, and we've got some launch coverage here. Take a quick peek.
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. We have ignition 2, 1, 0. We have liftoff of the United Launch Alliance Atlas V rocket carrying the second space-based infrared systems mission for the United States Air Force.
RD-180 pump speeds are within parameters. Pitch yaw roll program has begun. Vehicle body rates look good.
You are hearing the voice of Marty Malinowski providing launch vehicle ascent data. Let's listen in for mission progress.
RD-180 continues to operate well. Pump speeds are good. Ejector pressures are within parameters. Sound is complete.
I think that's a beautiful shot. Now check this out. Watch Dave's
and
shot.
we have BECO. Engine shutdown looks good.
Watch, this is epic.
We have retros and stage separation.
That is
We
beautiful.
have fuel unlocks pre-start. GN2 purge firing and the RCS is underway.
That's the kind of shot that every
We
vehicle
have
should
ignition
have.
and
Yeah,
full thrust
yeah.
on the RL-10.
Now watch this, watch this.
For the payload for jettison momentarily.
Watch for the...
And we have indication of jettison, and video confirms we have a good separation.
Here come the fairings.
This is ridiculous.
Boom!
Look at that. It's amazing.
I love that. It's just beautiful. We let that roll for a while just because it's so absolutely beautiful. This launched March 19th, and basically it's going to be early surveillance for missile warning systems, the Cebris system. It's this is GO2. There are a couple of satellites that are geosynchronous orbit, a couple that are in a higher orbit. They all kind of communicate with each other, and say infrared warning-based system. So there you go. That happened a couple weeks ago.
Very, very cool. And coming up, we've got Orbital's Antares rocket, which I always apparently mispronounce, is finally going to be setting off in April. Mid-April is the launch date, which is super awesome. April 16th. There we go. It's been dubbed the A1 mission, and it's been tasked with a 302nd validation mission to loft the Cygnus mass simulator payload to a target orbit of 250 kilometers by 350 kilometers with an inclination of 51.6 degrees. And you know darn well if I wasn't reading that, I would not be able to memorize it.
So basically, the Antares rocket is, much like SpaceX had won the Crew Orbital Transportation Services contract, not Crew, Cargo Orbital Transportation Services contract, so did Orbital Technologies, and this is their vehicle for that. So this is the rocket and the spacecraft that will be delivering cargo to the International Space Station. So NASA now has two different providers here in the U.S. that are able to launch a vehicle and cargo to the ISS. And that's what we're looking at right here. And it also, I think, the exciting part to me at least, is that it proves that SpaceX isn't a fluke.
Yeah, well, that, and it's got to take a lot of pressure off of SpaceX, because when you're the only game in town, it's kind of cool because you're the king of the hill to a certain extent. But at the same time, like, then you have to perform every single time.
I'm not sure they're really the only game in time, because there is United Launch Alliance still, right? So NASA could still buy a Atlas V or a Delta IV rocket if they needed it. But how they would get payload up there is a little bit, because they can get the rocket, they're just missing the cargo delivery platform.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is just nice. A little bit of pressure off of everyone, and then at the same time letting somebody else sort of take the spotlight for a little while.
Speaking of taking the spotlight, Jeff Bezos of Amazon fame has shown some lights deep in the ocean, and what did he find? Oh, A, some beautiful imagery, but B, a old school Saturn V F-1 rocket engine. Check out some of this footage. This is actual footage from them lifting and hoisting the Saturn V pressure chamber. The chamber, the F-1 chamber, up to the surface, and they've actually believed they're going to be able to recover enough of the F-1 engine to reconstruct essentially 2 of them.
Wow.
Right, now keep in mind, the reason these are at the bottom of the ocean is because when a Saturn V launched on the Apollo moon missions, there were several stages to the rocket. And the first stage would fall away, and that's where these engines were. On the very first stage, the very bottom, the very powerful engines, and they would fall back and go into the ocean. And they've been sitting down there for, well, since the late 60s, early 70s.
Right.
And isn't this just gorgeous? This is so really freaking cool stuff. So these engines will be on display in museums sometime in the future. I'm sure they got to clean them up and deal with the saltwater contamination, make sure that they don't continue to erode and decay. But yeah, I'm super excited for this. These are some of the most impressive engines humans have ever built, and it is the only engine that has helped loft humans to the moon. Yeah, that's mostly true. There's the F2, but you get the idea. Well, there was more than one engine on a Saturn V, but it's the only vehicle that has lofted humans to the moon. So, yeah.
Just gorgeous
absolutely
footage.
Really cool stuff that Jeff Bezos is doing, and yeah, hence the joke of being able to buy it on Amazon Prime in our coming up.
Because Ben thinks that he's funny.
I am funny.
So an update on a story that we did a couple of weeks ago. Soyuz was able to take what they've been, or what probably the media has been dubbing the fast track up to the International Space Station, but this time with humans. And they actually arrived a little bit earlier than they expected to, by about a total of 3 minutes, I believe it was. But that's really cool. What happens is normally is that the Soyuz rocket launches and then does 34 orbits and all of these different burns and what have you. It takes about 2 days to get up to the International Space Station.
And that is a teeny tiny capsule.
Yeah, it's imagine another person sitting right between Ben and I. Not that there's enough space for another person to sit here,
but they find a way.
They manage to squeeze them in anyway, and that's about how tight everyone is. It's kind of insane. And so now they've reduced the 2-day long journey to just under 6 hours. It's 5 hours 45 minutes or so, and so that's what happened, and it went off wonderfully. And some people have been calling it freaky fast. Actually, my mother-in-law, Mom Dog, there in the chat room, even emailed me and said, "Wow, that was really crazy. They launched and they got there the same day." And I'm like, "Yes, and that's the way it should be." So that's very cool that this sort of
bit of a ballistic trajectory there, but yeah, they made that happen.
They launch right after the ISS passes by, and they do a couple of burns right in the beginning to just sort of maneuver themselves into the correct spot. So it's a little bit easier and a lot faster and way more comfortable for all of the astronauts. So congratulations to them. It's a huge accomplishment.
So before we go to break, 2 quickies that I want to bring up. One is that as we're constantly talking about putting humans on Mars and getting humans off-world to another planet to help the species survive. But at this point, there's actually a 1 in 2,000 chance that comet, 2013 A1 will hit Mars in October of 2014. Now, this is a large enough comet that it could actually disrupt the rovers that we've got on the planet still operating. The rovers that are based on solar panels, Spirit and Opportunity, that will be bad because it's going to throw a big dust cloud up. It's going to basically darken the entire planet or a large swath of the planet, and
that's going to screw up some of our satellites systems as well.
That's correct, because they're communication back with the ground, right? Because they may not be able to penetrate the cloud. So we've got potential communications issues going down, and then we've also got potential sunlight issues for all of our solar-based vehicles. Now, Curiosity, that's actually a nuclear-based vehicle, and it should be fine. At least it should be able to weather the storm, as it were. But interesting. Now, that also means that there's a 1,999 out of 2,000 chance that nothing will happen, or that the comet will just pass by and we'll be okay. But
But,
interesting because we're always talking about going to Mars, sending humans there now because of potential asteroid impacts here on Earth.
Right.
And we're about to hit Mars potentially with an asteroid. I know.
How's that space program going?
Exactly. And one last thing really quick. Dragon, you were talking about orbital technologies and how they're good. Well, SpaceX has been doing the COTS program for a little while now. They just had a Dragon return. We've actually got a couple pictures. Check this out. I like that picture because they're just kind of waving. Cool. This is a Dragon back in port. So they're getting ready to... Now, this is one of my favoriteest pictures because they've got... If you check it might be hard to see in the live webcast, but go back on demand. There's the black flag in the background with the Dragon logo on it. It totally looks like a pirate flag to me.
It does!
I know, I think that's
Oh my
hilarious.
goodness, now that you say that, for sure.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, Andrew Nelson of XCOR is going to be on the show to talk to us a little bit about who XCOR is and what their latest accomplishments in some rocket enginery will be. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
Look into her face, determination in her eyes. She won't give up or quit or fall for little fashion lies. Filled with awesome expectation, this girl's a fascination. And nothing in her way will keep her from her destination. 'Cause she's fire walking, she's fire walking. When it's hot, she keeps on moving, through the heat keeps on improving. Yeah, she's fire walking, she's fire walking to be free.
Welcome back to the show. We are joined now by Andrew Nelson of XCOR. XCOR just recently released some video of a new piston engine. First off, Andrew, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, and sorry for any background noise you might hear. I'm having to do this from the local Starbucks. My daughter's playing soccer today.
Well, that's quite all right. I'm sure it'll work just fine. Starbucks is actually a great place to do live Spacevidcast episodes from. So before we get into what the piston engine is, can you tell us, for anyone who maybe isn't a space geek or hasn't been following XCOR, a little bit about who XCOR is, what you guys are all about?
Sure. So XCOR's been around since 1999. Our claim to fame is fully reusable rocket engines, and we've flown two earlier rocket-powered aircraft, the Easy Rocket and the X-Racer, and we're now moving forward to building the Lynx suborbital vehicle, which hopefully by the end of this year will be in flight test program, and next year flying people like yourselves to the edge of space.
So what's your business model then? How do you guys make money if you've been around for so long? You can't just kind of float around on just random funds for a while. I mean, how do you make it go?
Yep. Hey, Ben, I'm going to kill my video because I can't hear you coming back. Is that okay?
Oh, you can't hear us at all?
Well, I'm getting about every third syllable, but it just got better.
All right. So what we'll do is we'll actually kill our return video. But go ahead and... so the question is, what's XCOR's business model, essentially?
Yeah. So XCOR right now is in the midst of building the Lynx vehicle. And the objective is to take off on the runway like a normal aircraft and fly to the edge of space and do a mission and then come back. We can do that up to 4 times a day. And the real key that makes that happen are these piston pumps that we've developed over the last 8 or 9 years.
And we've got a video of actually some of this stuff. Hopefully you'll be able to see it. There's not a whole lot of audio, but maybe you can walk us through a little bit about what we're looking at. So go ahead and roll that.
Sure. Okay, so we're getting ready to roll the test stand out. That's a flight weight fuselage with the actual engine truss structure. We have piston pumps that drive both the liquid oxygen and the fuel, which is kerosene, into the pump. So we see us loading liquid oxygen into the liquid oxygen tank that's inside the fuselage. We're now inside of our test bunker here, and Jeremy and the team are getting ready to fire the engine. We have a very rigorous checklist that we go through prior to firing on the test stand. It's tied down outside on a very deep concrete pad. We're in the Mojave. And there you go, the firing has started. And then this is a 67-second run on full pump fed LOX and kerosene. This is the first time that this test series has ever occurred since the beginning of time. We don't know of anyone else who's used piston pumps. And basically, this video will go for 67 seconds until we run out of liquid oxygen, and then the test concludes, and then we do an orderly shutdown.
So I'll kill your video to hopefully help a little bit of the bandwidth issues you're seeing. But what is the advantage of a piston pumped rocket as opposed to anything else from, say, SpaceX Merlin engines? They're liquid oxygen and kerosene as well.
Sure, that's right. Yeah, they use a turbine pump. If you're below 100,000 pounds of thrust for a kerosene engine, we believe that a piston pump is a much better solution. You get just as much performance, but what you get is a much lower cost. You get full reusability, much like the piston engine in your car. You go around, you drive it, you stop, you put gas. If you're an airplane, you do a checklist and you take off again. And that's the benefit. We actually measure the life of a piston pump in terms of hundreds and thousands of hours of operation, not minutes, like in a turbine pump. A typical piston pump in production might cost $100,000, $150,000, where a turbine pump will cost $500,000 to $3 million. So there's a lot of benefit.
And you had talked about Lynx a little bit earlier, your suborbital space plane. This technology is going directly into Lynx. Is that the plan?
Yes, that is correct. So these are the actual piston pumps that will go on the Lynx vehicle. They're flight weight piston pumps. Interestingly enough, we have relied very heavily on the automotive and the racing industry as our touch point in our design of these vehicles. We find that the automotive industry is to do things repetitively the same way millions of times and have it right every single time to tight tolerances, and that's what we need in our concept of operations, which is 4 times a flight a day, 250 days a year, over 5 or 6 years with the same vehicle. So we have to come to the design space with a different mindset than traditional aerospace.
We've heard about Lynx and paralleling one of your competitors, Virgin Galactic, for quite a while now, and we haven't actually seen a vehicle fly with a rocket engine attached to it yet. When you were saying you're potentially doing tests later this year, is that going to be a full-on flight test, or is that just going to be something on the ground? What are you planning to do with Lynx this year, something that people could see? Not necessarily fly.
Yeah, so we're supposed to we're supposed to start the flight test program this year. So the first thing we do is we will do integration tests. We'll then tie the vehicle down and actually do some engine testing, much as we've done with our earlier Easy Rocket and X-Racer rocket-powered aircraft. We'll then do slow taxi tests, and then we'll do fast taxi tests. And pretty soon you can't go any faster. You got to do a runway hop, and then pretty soon you're going to run out of runway to do hops on. And then you're going to do your first up and around flight, much like an aircraft test program. And then we'll slowly build out the flight envelope, go higher, faster, supersonic, and then continuing up to maximum altitude. So it's a rigorous flight test program, but this year in 2013, you should see that first up and around flight, if not more.
That's actually pretty cool, because we've been waiting for suborbital flight for quite some time. I mean, us space geeks, we all want to go to space, right? And this is kind of one of those first steps to actually making that happen. And certainly suborbital space is good enough, but we got to get there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And trust me, I'm waiting too. All of XCOR is waiting, because I think, as you know, Ben, Carey, that if you're an employee of XCOR, you're going to be in the flight test program or as a check flight for a production vehicle, if you want to. All of our employees will be allowed to fly in the Lynx, and not required, but if they want to do it, we are going to get them in there and fly.
So let's say I'm not an employee, because I'm not an employee, and I want to take a suborbital flight on a Lynx. How do I go about doing that? Well, once you start flying.
So we have a general sales agent, Space Expedition Corporation, who's put in place a set of agents, more than 100 around the world, and they're out there selling tickets today. So you could contact SXC or one of the agents that are on our list, and you can buy a flight. It's $95,000, which is pretty good bargain compared to the other guy. But we think it's a greater experience. You're sitting in the cockpit, and it's a real astronaut, the right stuff sort of thing.
We actually have a question from the chat room from Beep Beep Beep,
yes.
Asking, how are you progressing on the prototype Lynx airframe? Are you welding metal together yet? What's the airframe look like at this point?
Yeah, well, all the metal, almost all the metal that we're going to have in the vehicle is welded together at the moment. The vehicle truss structure and the landing gear, that sort of thing, is metal. But the rest of the vehicle is made out of carbon fiber of some form or another. And we've got the fuselage you just saw rolled out. We had it covered with a tarp. So that's ready. The cockpit should be delivered in the next month or so. The wing strakes, the wings are starting to undergo final design, and then we'll build those. So it's an incremental step, but hopefully, this summer you're going to see something that looks like a Lynx starting to come together on our hangar floor. If you want to see something that looks like a Lynx, we do have a full-scale mock-up. We've shown it at a couple shows. The next one I think it'll be at the Space Tech Expo in Long Beach in May, and it will be at the Next Generation Suborbital Researchers Conference as well. So if you want to sit in a model of a Lynx that's full scale, you can do that. But the real one is coming together this summer.
Of course, our chat room is going a little bit crazy. They're debating all of these different things, and they're all so excited. And I think the most pervasive question is, are you hiring?
Yes, we do. We actually have a few openings on our website, and we have some other openings that we just haven't got around to posting. But if you have an interest and you have a set of skills, if you've built something that is pretty cool and challenging, and you've flown it yourself or driven it yourself, or gone in water with it yourself, we want to talk to you, because XCOR is all about people who build things. And design them. And if you know SolidWorks and you know how to build something that's pretty robust, you should be sending us your resume, because you never know. We actually just recently hired a fella out of Midland, Texas, who, in addition to his day job, he's actually one of the better drag race builders in West Texas, and he's brought a great set of skills to the table for us.
So where do you go from here? Let's say you've built Lynx, you've started doing bunches and bunches of suborbital flights. What's after Lynx for XCOR?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, after we built the first one or two, we actually have a set of customers who want to fly them themselves in different parts of the world, whether here in the U.S. or overseas. So Space Expedition Corporation, in addition to our GSA, is also a wet lease customer, so they'll be flying out of Curacao. We have other interests in Germany and Europe and Middle East and Asia. So hopefully in the next 5 or 10 years, we'll have 10, 15, 20 Lynxes flying around the world. But after that, we're already starting to design the fully reusable orbital system, which is based off the similar Lynx concept of operations. In between that step, though, we'll certainly have a satellite launch capability off the back of the Lynx, which we call the Lynx Mark III. And that should be, in the next 2 to 3 years, we should have something like that flying from an East Coast U.S. site, probably Kennedy Space Center.
That's actually really cool. It's fun to see people who are actually doing it and making it happen, as opposed to people who are just talking about it.
Totally.
And I'm excited to see Lynx. We've seen the mock-ups, but I'm excited to see it actually start doing its tests. That's going to be really cool. And we debate back and forth as to who's going to actually make it there first. XCOR or Virgin Galactic, because XCOR's got the airframe but no engine, and XCOR's got the engine but no airframe, and we're not sure which is actually harder to do. So there's a lot of betting going on internally.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, I'll be honest. My bet. I'll put that out there. I mean, my bet is that George will get his flying powered flight first, and we never expected to be first. We expected to be, quite honest, third or fourth, but we keep surviving and others don't. And so, for us, it's not a race. It's all about doing it safely. We wish them the best of luck.
I think Virgin Galactic would say the exact same thing. It's all about safety. It's very important that people are, it's just like an airliner, just as safe as an airliner. You don't want any danger there. It's just kind of fun to internally bet back and forth, see who's going. So we can do that. You can't, but we can. All right. Andrew, I'd like to thank you so much for joining us today, taking time out of your day and talking to us a little bit about XCOR. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, viewer comments from last week. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
We are the explorers. We have a need to find what is out there. It is a drive inside each and every one of us. The drive to wonder, to push the boundaries, and to explore. We expanded across our lands, settling new frontiers. We took to the oceans and learned that we could cross treacherous expanses in the pursuit of discovery. And then we took to the skies and flew. But that wasn't enough. We left the planet and redefined what was possible. We flew in space. We walked in space. What once was a melodramatic flight of fantasy became reality. Then, a new generation of spaceships captured hearts and minds for 3 decades and helped build a castle in the sky that is our lasting home in space. We have always looked up. For centuries, we wondered what was on the other side of the sky, and we have begun to answer that question. We have learned that all the exploration humankind has achieved is only a beginning. Right now, men and women are working on the next steps to go farther than we have ever gone before. New vessels will carry us, and new destinations await us. Everything we have ever accomplished leads to this moment in time, where exploration will now take us to the planets and the stars. Our nearest neighbors in the night sky have beckoned us, invited us, dared us to reach for them. We are the explorers. Throughout our history, we have taken both small steps and giant leaps in that pursuit. Our next destination awaits. We don't know what new discoveries lie ahead, but this is the very reason we must go.
Thank you, Optimus Prime. That was very inspirational. Actually, little factoid. That's like a 2-minute commercial is going to be turned into a 30-second spot that will play in front of movies such as the upcoming Star Trek movie. I almost said Star Wars. Star Trek movie.
Star Trek Into Darkness.
Which is going to be awesome. That's like 2 weeks away, though, isn't it? So they raised the money on Indiegogo.
Yep.
And
they same kind of thing like we've been talking about all season about different Indiegogo Kickstarter programs. They needed, I think it was like $30,000 in order to get it into key cities, key movie theaters in cities across the U.S. And so they raised enough money for that. And so then now their sort of stretch goal is, I believe it's $93,000. So another $60,000 or so. Particularly, they were just over 30 this morning, like 33,000, 34,000, something along those lines. But they still have we've got so many weeks to go still, so let's just keep going. So they want to get $93,000, and that'll get it into every single movie theater across the country, which is kind of insane and awesome. Very, very crazy, and very, very cool.
I am super excited to see a 30-second version of that before Star Trek.
Somebody in our chat room is updating us. So 32 days left and $35,786 left. And as we talked about this at Space Up a little bit as well, where the incentives are just basically cheap plastic little toys for the most part. It's not anything that's super exclusive necessarily. You're really doing it for the love of NASA, space exploration, getting the word out, getting people motivated, getting people excited.
I think that's going to be awesome. I mean, and it's the perfect movie to put it in front of, and it's just NASA. I don't want to say NASA can't advertise because NASA just likes to kind of take some verbiage a little too far. But, NASA chooses not to advertise. And so this is a great way to advertise on NASA's behalf.
I prefer Nassertize.
Yeah. On NASA's behalf on what I think is a fairly inspirational Optimus Prime video. So, all right. On that note, let's talk about viewer comments from the last show. I said last week, and I got scolded in the chat room from 2 weeks ago. The show 2 weeks ago.
The last show.
This first comment is from Rich Wayne, who says, I have for a long time followed and thought possible ventures that proposed how to send people to Mars or back to the moon or build a giant colonies in space. I've come to realize that this all comes back to one essential common denominator. In order for this to happen, we must reduce launch costs by 1 or 2 orders of magnitude. And there are certainly providers working on this exact thing right now. And I think we are I said this in the last show, we're in an epic time to be alive. There is a ton of change happening right here, right now. The problem is you're not seeing it. Because a lot of this is happening behind closed doors.
Well, I mean, XCOR is a perfect example, right?
Absolutely.
Forever and a day, we've been like, what is XCOR doing? What is XCOR doing? What is XCOR doing?
And now they're talking about being
Andrew's
able to
like, oh yeah, for the last 8 or 9 years, we've been working on this revolutionary piston engine. And we were like, well then, why didn't you just say so? What's the deal, man?
Well, you don't want to you don't want to let it out, right?
No, for sure.
And aerospace takes a really long time. But
I know.
Look at where XCOR is. They're going to start suborbital test flights potentially the end of this year. We'll say 2014, 2015, but that's right around the corner. I mean, that's within.
It is. I mean, within
Virgin
5 years, we could be flying paying customers.
Oh, I would like to think well within 5 years.
Could be,
right?
I said could be.
It's
I
all
didn't
about
say they're
safety.
gonna.
But Virgin Galactic, another really good suborbital carrier. But look at what SpaceX is doing. We've got Orbital doing some cool stuff, which is forcing the incumbents to think differently as well.
Right.
So I believe because of this, we're going to actually start to see some cool stuff out of ULA. Also, I don't know for certain, but I think that they're not going to just sit back and let these new players.
No.
Right. So they're going to do something too. So there is a lot of really awesome stuff happening over the next decade that will, I think, radically change how we view space, much more so than the space shuttle did, in my opinion. So I'm excited, and I think, to your point, that launch costs need to decrease by a factor of 1 or 2. I think that actually will happen over the next decade. I think we will get there. It takes some time. All right, from U5KO. Is anyone else getting sad? I like to get to know about possibly vaporware-ish type stuff, which could happen at some point in the undefined future, but I just don't have the morale to watch this week after week. Every once in a while, it's nice to get to know about the stuff that is more than a 50% chance of actually happening, which is one of the... He wrote that comment, and I totally understand, right? We've done show after show of Kickstarter campaigns and things that are pretty far out there.
But my favorite part is that you're like, hey, I found this Kickstarter thing. And I'm like, seriously? Another one? How many people are we going to talk to? And you're like, we haven't done Kickstarter every week. No, you're right. We did Indiegogo one week. Seriously, man. So thank you, USKO. Not just somebody who he lives with is saying these sorts of things.
So we should title the show something like, this one's for USKO. I don't know.
There you go.
Some fun title for it. No, I hear you, and I think bringing XCOR, I purposely sought out XCOR, and if you go to spacevidcast.com/live, you can see the next few guests that are coming up. We've got JPL on next week's show and DIY Rockets on the show after. So I am bringing it back around, and I hear you, but the difference between insanity and brilliance is a razor thin edge.
It is,
and sometimes it's nice to just kind of bring some of these guys on and see what they're doing.
Yes.
You never know.
I know.
You never know.
And then you can say, I was there when.
I was there when. Don't be sad. Don't be sad.
Well, USKO is always like that, though.
Lerox22, I believe, is how you pronounce that. It would be cool if there was a program similar to the Mars Initiative or the Google Lunar X Prize, but for sending a drilling probe to Europa. Okay. Well, all right. So Google Lunar X.
Wait, so you pick out these comments, and the only thing you have to say back to it is, okay. It's not like you're the only 5 people who comment on our shows.
That's my Craig Ferguson moment.
No,
that's my Craig Ferguson moment. Come on, I'm
on.
allowed. No, all right. So my point there is, with something like the Google Lunar X Prize,
yes,
they don't just randomly say, "Hey, you need to put a rover on the moon," because that sounds cool.
Right.
They look at, let's use the Ansari X Prize.
Okay.
Out of that has born Virgin Galactic, essentially. Right? Spaceship 2, White Knight 2, and a lot of that, XCOR is a little different, but kind of that same concept of what was done in the Ansari X Prize.
Right.
And so the X Prize Foundation looks for ways to incentivize people to push certain areas of the industry forward. And so there's and a market. They feel there's a market there for what they're trying to do. Same thing with the Google Lunar X Prize, right? There's a potential market there. Putting drilling on Europa sounds cool. It would be cool.
Sounds awesome.
But what's the market? Is it asteroid mining? Well, then why not just make it asteroid mining? Why does it need to be Europa? Why does it need to be anything specific? Why not just say, look, the first team to make it to an asteroid and mine part of it wins, whatever it may be.
Wins.
Yay, you're well, you win funds or something, right?
Winner. Yeah.
So I guess that's my point on that. I guess you could make it a very specific destination. Maybe it makes it easier, but I'm not sure what the advantage of that is. So there you go. This comes from RTR7 router Vuzi. I don't know. I tend to agree with the fact that people don't need money once they're there, and this is in regards to the last show we did where you get a pool of money after you make it there.
Yes.
There should be funding to the hardware. So the comment basically saying, look, you don't need the money once you've made it there, but you need it in advance. And I'm not sure that that's entirely true. Using, once again, the Google Lunar X Prize and the Antares X Prize as an example, you don't get the money until you've successfully won the competition, essentially. And there were multiple teams competing to send a human into suborbital space, which, prior to that was countries only. This wasn't a small task.
Right. And
much like Google Lunar X Prize, that is not a small task. Asteroid mining is not a small task, and putting humans on Mars is not a small task. So yeah, it would be easier if you got the money up front, but it is not unheard of to not get said money until after you've done it. And some people in the comments, actually on the YouTube channel, said, well, this is silly. You need the money first before you can make it there. That's when you need the funds.
You need some money
Someone actually
to
said,
get you there. But, I mean, in order to... It's like anything that you're trying to do. If you have to go out and do some fundraising or to find people to align yourself with, that's not impossible either. I mean, so many words, all of them. I want to use all of them. Red Bull didn't just go out and say, hey, let's just fund some stuff willy-nilly kind of thing. Somebody came to Red Bull and said, hey, we want to do this jump and it's going to be really cool. Let's do this thing together. And this is how it makes sense. And you go out and you find those people to align yourself with, to get funding from, or to get parts from, or to get brilliance from, right? Like sometimes you have engineers that are slightly out of your reach because they're working for one thing or another. And sometimes you can freelance some things. There's all different ways to get around this sort of like, I have no money, boo-hoo, but I want to do something.
Boo-hoo.
Just do it. Just start doing it, and you'll find the money, essentially.
Chris Radcliffe in the chat room brings up a very valid point, which is investors are much more likely to kick in if there's a chance of a big payoff. So if there's a purse there, and you know that you could get the purse, you can actually get the money in advance by having investors say, look, I get a good swath of this money after you make it.
Right.
And make that go. So it's a bit of a risk on the investor's part, but what investment isn't? The other point I wanted to make in regards to this was people were saying you don't need the money once you've landed, and I don't think that's true either. Even after you've landed, you need to sustain operations. Yeah. So you do actually still need sustained money, and maybe that's an influx that was necessary to help you continue to do operations on the red planet. Who knows, right? So just because you're not getting it up front doesn't mean that that money in that purse won't actually be useful to you. All right, and finally, this is from Kai. Yuri's night is my birthday. I thought that was fun. It was actually a really good transition into Yuri's night. Did you want to talk about Yuri's night for a moment? You like how I did that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, I suppose. Yuri's night, of course, Yuri Gagarin was the very first human to get off of this Earth in 1961. April 12th, 1961. April 12th, 1981 was the very first space shuttle launch. Just happened to be by coincidence. And somewhere in the middle of there, April 12th, something was Loretta Hidalgo Whiteside's birthday.
Oh, that was
Yeah, right. Well, yeah, it was that one. Anyhow, so April 12th, of course, is many people's birthday, and what better way to celebrate it, particularly when you like space and or just having fun, is to go to a Yuri's Night party. Yuri'sNight.net has got the entire list of all of the parties that are going on around the world and off-world, as well as some virtual worlds. World of Warcraft, Second Life. I'm sure there's many more that I'm not
International Space Station.
And the International Space Station. It's just a party celebrating humans in space. And
the engineers, the artists, the astronauts, all of them. It celebrates all of humanity's accomplishments in making it into space. And it is a worldwide epic party of epic epicness. And it is nearly upon us. And if you don't have a Yuri's Night party near you, start one. Right? Go to urisnight.net. They'll give you all the tools necessary to start your own party. Or if you'd prefer just attend a party that's near you, go to urisnight.net, look up your closest Yuri's Night party, and attend that. It's
definitely go.
Friday
it's on a
year.
Friday this year.
I know, yes.
It's so awesome. It's I love it when everything just kind of aligns. It's just so nice.
Spacevidcast will be attending the Yuri's Night Los Angeles official party right here in Los Angeles, and we will be streaming it to you live, hopefully, and that will be from the California Science Center, right underneath Space Shuttle Endeavour, and that will be tons of fun.
I'm hoping we can get a spot right there. It's gonna be like, hey guys, check it out.
I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure if anyone at the Science Center watches the show, they're gonna be like, keep them as far away from the shuttle as possible.
Don't care.
Keep
they don't watch the show.
They don't watch.
No, they don't watch the show. It's okay.
So, urisnight.net and April 12th. That's what you need to know. Friday, April 12th. And year after year, they do this worldwide celebration, and it is not small. It is a big, big party.
It's a huge thing.
That is our show for this week. I'd like to thank everyone so much for watching. We're going to be going into Spacevidcast After Dark up next. What is After Dark, you say? It is an unscripted, epic show where we just talk about anything that we may want to be able to talk about. Now, After Dark, if you're watching live, will be available to you right now. However, if you're watching on demand and you like to watch After Dark, you can sign up for Spacevidcast Epic, which gets you access to gigs and gigs. I think it's 40 gigs is my last count of extra content from Spacevidcast, including After Dark episodes. We've got AIAA meetings. We just came back from recording AIAA Los Angeles. We will release a good swath of that for free, but if you want the whole meeting with the entire Q&A session, you need to be a Spacevidcast Epic subscriber. And it starts at it's $10 per month or $100 per year, and that funding helps us continue to produce the show. So basically, you give us money to help producing the show, and in exchange, we give you exclusive content that no one else has access to, including Spacevidcast After Dark. So www.spacevidcast.com/epic. And on that note, let's go to that show, and we'll see you guys next week.